cultivate our motivation. And this lifetime we've been born at a time and a place where the Buddha has appeared, where he's taught, where the lineage of the teachings and the ordination lineages still exist. And so this has given us an incredible blessing, an incredible opportunity in our life. Because we could have been born healthy and with so many other good things going for us, but at a historical time when there was no Buddha appearing, or when the lineage of the teachings has died out, and when there was no Sangha around, no teachers around. And if you think about that, being born in that kind of situation where you had a very strong spiritual yearning, and yet nothing in your environment could satisfy that, I think that would be incredibly painful, very difficult situation. But we're free of that kind of obstacle this life. And so while we have the opportunity to learn the teachings and practice them, we should really take advantage of it and not walk away from it. Because if we walk away from it now, when do we think we'll have the opportunity to practice in the future? If we don't practice when we have the opportunity, how will we create the cause to be able to practice in the future? And so let's really treasure this opportunity and take full advantage of it. And one way to do that is by generating the bodhicitta, aiming for full enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. And not just repeating that like blah blah, but really trying to have some feeling in our own heart of wanting to transform this mental continuum into the mental continuum of a fully enlightened Buddha, so that we can have the 3 Buddha bodies, and that give us the ability to work very well for the benefit of beings. Let's generate that motivation. Okay, so, oops, here we are. Okay, so we're on the line that says release, investigation, and analysis. And not only does the translation of this line, but the explanation is very puzzling to me. It says, this means that you should give up gross and subtle analysis of your motivation for your actions of body, speech, and mind with reference to your long, middling, and short-term aims, and should spend the time rejoicing. So that doesn't make any sense to me, that you would give up analyzing your motivation for your body, speech, and mind. So like I've said before, I think this text could use another translation. But fortunately, the same line appears in another rendition of the 7-point thought training, and it's translated as be liberated by 2, examination and analysis. So this one says release, investigation, and analysis. This one is be liberated. So release sometimes, So they just, I think, got it wrong here, releasing the wrong thing. So you are liberated by examination, or which is sometimes translated as investigation and analysis. And these are two of the changeable mental factors. Analysis, investigation examines the general details of something, and analysis examines the specific details. And so they're called changeable mental factors because it depends on what you happen to be investigating and analyzing. If you're investigating and analyzing the nature of the person, then those things are virtuous. If you're investigating and analyzing the qualities of a car to see if it's going to meet your requirements for attracting the kind of people you want to attract and having the kind of social image you want to have, then that's not going to be so virtuous. Okay? So, assuming that we're doing the virtuous ones, here in this case, investigation is looking into which afflictions are stronger and more frequent. And so this has come up a lot, really looking at our mind and really seeing, which afflictions are the prominent ones for me and how do they come up and which ones are stronger and what kind of situations do they come up in so that we can know which ones to target specifically. Okay? And then analysis is recognizing the objects that provoke the arising of affliction. Okay? And so we want to know, in the law and remember there's these 6 conditions for the arising of afflictions. So it's very good, when we look and, okay, what afflictions are stronger, and then what circumstances or what kind of external thing is going on that it very habitually makes my afflictions arise. And so one of those is, of course, contact with the object of the afflictions. If you see somebody you dislike, you very easily get angry. If you see something you like, attachment very easily arises. Okay? If your pen runs out of ink, then and it's right there in your hand, you get mad and frustrated. Mm-hmm. So maybe somebody will get her another pen. Okay, and okay, up here, pay attention up here, folks. Don't get distracted. It's only a pen. Okay, now you see how the presence of the object, takes the mind away, doesn't it? Yeah. And also media is a very important thing that triggers the arising of afflictions. And I think we have to be extremely careful what media we are in contact with. I really notice it when I'm in an airport because so much all around, kind of saying, buy me and look at this. And not only the shops, but all the billboards and everything else around. And it wears at your mind, and it can easily make attachment come up. Yeah? Or watching certain kind of, movies. Yeah? I really notice it if I'm on a plane, and even though I don't listen to the movie because it's right there in front, you look at the stuff, and then that stuff just stays in your mind afterwards. So I think we have to be very careful about where we put our attention, because we're constantly putting imprints on our mind of different objects by what we read, what we see around us, and so on. And that can be very strong in making afflictions arise. As you know, my classic example is if you're trying to lose weight and you love ice cream, don't meet your friend in the ice cream shop, because it's not going to work. So we have to be smart and know what kind of situations not to put ourselves in, simply because the power of the object is too strong for us. Okay? And so that's also one of the reasons we take precepts monastic precepts because it limits some of the situations that we're in, and thus helps to protect us from the afflictions that arise in a very strong, overpowering way. So that isn't to escape from those afflictions, but to give you the mental space to be able to apply the antidotes and combat them. Because if the afflictions arise too strongly, we're overwhelmed and there's no way we can apply the antidote. Whereas if we restrict the environment that we're in, then the afflictions may be there and we can see them. They're more moderate. We can apply the antidote. Okay? And remember, it came before in one of the previous mind training things about not being arrogant and thinking, oh, I can handle this, and then putting ourselves in a situation with the objects of our afflictions, thinking that, well, I have mindfulness, it won't get to me, I'll transform it, and baloney, our mind is usually overpowered. I don't know about your mind, my mind is. What about your mind? So that's why we keep some distance from the objects, okay? And of course, friends can be a strong factor in what kind of situations we're in. And our friends can really encourage a virtuous mind, and they can encourage a non-virtuous mind. So we really have to choose our friends very, very carefully. I think this is extremely important, because our parents were right. Birds of a feather flock together. Yeah. Remember when you were a kid and you were, being with some other people your parents didn't like, and they say, you be careful, you're going to become like them. And first you said, there's nothing wrong with them. And then even if you saw something wrong, you said, I won't do it just because they are. What happened? Okay, we'll go on. Yeah. So it's quite important to choose our friends very wisely, isn't it? Yeah. Because they can really incite the presence or the absence of afflictions in our mind. So that's why sometimes when people really start practicing Dharma seriously, there's an automatic kind of change in the people that they're close to. And for some people that's a little bit unsettling, kind of like, oh, I used to have all these other friends and now I'm not with them, and what's wrong with me or what's wrong with them? There's a lot of doubt and confusion that comes up. But if you look at it in another way, as we get more and more into Dharma and we start taking more care with our mind and what arises in our mind, then that very naturally, we are drawn to certain kinds of people and not drawn to other kinds of people. And I don't think it's something that we have to get confused about. It just kind of happens naturally. Doesn't it? Don't you think? Even people who don't practice Dharma change friends. Don't they? If you change husbands and wives, you're really changing friends, aren't you? So, but we're not doing it out of animosity. We're not divorcing our friends. But sometimes, we just become more attracted to other people because we notice that when we're around them, they encourage our virtuous minds. Yeah? And we don't want to be around the people who encourage our non-virtuous minds, not because they're bad people, but because our minds are easily hooked by what they're into. Okay, they're not bad people, but we have certain tendencies and our mind gets hooked, doesn't it? Yeah? Yeah, ask anybody who's in AA and they'll tell you, who they hang around is going to influence whether they stop drinking or keep drinking. Yeah? Because we get hooked by what other people talk about and what they do. Okay, so that was that one. Then the next one, it's a little bit simpler. Don't be boastful. Now, before I tell you about this, I've got to tell you about all my good qualities and what I've accomplished and blah, 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 blah. Okay? So it says, do not boast of the little good you have done for others by repeatedly reminding them of it. Ring a bell? After everything I've done for you, look at how you treat me. We've heard that, haven't we? Have we said it? Even if we haven't said it, we have sure thought it, haven't we? You know? Kind of sometimes after a while of practicing, it's like, well, that's not a nice thing to say, so I keep my mouth shut, but inside my mind is saying, look at everything I did to help you, and look how you're treating me. This is not fair. Yeah, I mean, all idea of humility, all idea of karma, out the window. You know, this is business bargain relationship. I gave to you, you better give to me. That's how we treat relationships sometimes, isn't it? You know, it's really like a business bargaining thing. Yeah, I gave you this, you should give me that. I did this for you, you should do this for me. No idea of karma. You know, either creating good karma or experiencing the result of our previous karma. No idea of that, you know. We've just let that go. Okay? But instead, and if you noticed, we always say, after everything I've done for you, why are you treating me this way? We never say, after everything you've done for me, why am I treating you this way? We never say that, do we? We never think that. Yeah. Especially look at our parents, you know. Look at what our parents did for us. You know, giving us this body, raising us, cleaning our poop, changing our diapers, teaching us to tie our shoelaces, you know, coping with our temper tantrums, coping with everything we did behind their back and didn't tell them. You know, I mean, just think of what we did as kids. And yet we never think in relationship to our parents, look at everything you've done for me. Why am I treating you like this? We never think that, do we? Yeah? Instead, we kind of treat our parents sometimes like they're our employees, you know. I didn't ask to be born. You had me, so now you better serve me and do this, this, and this. Okay? Not the right attitude, is it? Okay? So do not boast of the little good you have done for others by repeatedly reminding them of it. If it were proper to boast of the good you have done, the transcendent subduer, in other words, the Buddha, would have said so, but he didn't. And also, he would have done so. The Buddha would be going, look at what I did for you, and look how you treat me. I practiced the path for 3 countless great eons. You think that was easy, buddy? You know, I did this for you, and look, you can't even do a regular meditation practice and pay homage to me every day. Pooey. You know. Yeah, Buddha doesn't do that, does he? We do that. Okay. So this one says, so especially don't boast about our practice. You know, I've done this, I've studied this, I've done this retreat and that retreat, and I've accomplished this, and I've had this far out experience and that far out experience. And to really see, you know, working for sentient beings is the only natural and right thing to do, isn't it? And in addition, if we've taken the Bodhisattva vows, we've already made a pledge to do that. So why get stuck up if we've already promised to do something? Yeah, there's no reason to get stuck up about it. We're just we're just doing what we've promised to do, and we've made that promise voluntarily, haven't we? When we've taken the Bodhisattva vows, nobody forced us to do it. Yeah, we decided with a very clear mind, a very compassionate mind, this is really what we wanted to do in life, and so we, made that pledge. So then, when we keep our pledge, then there's nothing to get all puffed up about, and to go around reminding people of, everything we've done. I did this and I did this. Did any of your other friends do all those nice, kind things for you? We kind of toot our own horn, don't we? Okay, so not being boastful. What does being boastful do to our own mind? Yeah. It makes us really kind of unrealistic, doesn't it? Yeah, putting ourselves up where there's no reason to. And then, like I said, it makes us see our relationships all in terms of business. Yeah, what I gave to you and what you're giving to me. And is it fair? Hmm. Yeah, very much. It takes us away from the closeness that we want to have towards sentient beings. Yeah, because we're putting ourselves a notch above them, making ourselves better than them. And as soon as we think we're better than somebody, we're distancing ourselves from them. Yeah. Similar way, as soon as we make ourselves worse than somebody, we're distancing ourselves from them. Yeah. So this is kind of how feelings of alienation come about. A lot of eye-grasping and, dividing into higher and lower, superior and inferior. Just a bunch of useless conceptualization, isn't it? Hey, this one. Don't be short-tempered. Who should I look at? Everybody points to Achala. He's sitting there so sweet, sleeping. Okay. Blame it on him. Me? I'm not short-tempered. It's Achala. Okay, don't be short-tempered. You should not express dissatisfaction with the size of offerings and rewards, or you will breach the commitment not to grumble. Don't you love the wording in this text? Okay, but it's very easy as a practitioner, to grumble about, the offerings and be dissatisfied. I traveled so far, or I put myself out for you so much. I went through this and that and the other thing, and then this is all you put in the dana basket? I mean, it's easy to have that kind of mind, isn't it? Yeah, it's very easy to have that kind of mind. Or even if, not in that situation, as a teacher in school with children, I go through so much hardship and this and this and this, and at the end of the year, does the family even say thank you? No. Yeah. And so very easy to get short-tempered and critical of other people. Yeah. So many kind of situations. We help somebody on a project, yeah, and then we feel that they don't give us enough appreciation or enough credit. We make a fuss and we grumble and I did this and this and you only did that and how come you got all the credit? And it's easy to talk about when we're in that situation. We have such a strong sense of justice, don't we? Yeah, this has been inculcated in it. In the States, we have a sense of this kind of justice in these kinds of things that people in other countries don't have. Yeah, and if we don't get what we think we deserve, we are incensed. really incensed. And, and then we criticize somebody, we grumble, we take somebody to court, we complain. Yeah, very difficult, because this idea of, of fairness, of balancing the scales. Yeah, we learned it when we were little, isn't it? It was, I don't know about you, but it was my chief defense when I got in trouble when I was little. Was saying, it's not fair. He started it. It's not fair that I get in trouble. Yeah, so often and so many things. It's not fair. I did the water bowls last week. I have to do them again this week. It's not fair. You totally forget about the opportunity to create merit by doing the water bowls. It's like, I did them already. It's somebody else's turn. Yeah. So where's this precept not to grumble? We break it a lot. I don't know where it is, but we certainly break it, don't we? Grumble, grumble, grumble. Yeah. Wendy wrote a beautiful story about her stay at the Abbey. It's online if you haven't read it, about having to get up and do the offerings and grumbling, because, and then just how that she realized as the week went on that was her Dharma practice. Anyway, it was a great story. Okay, so, this one says, do not retaliate. Okay, so it's similar. Do not be short-tempered, do not retaliate. Don't keep track of harms given to us and seek revenge. Okay, so that's another way we do it. Yeah, it's like, so-and-so did this and this and this to me. Yeah, so I've got my sense of justice, I've got to retaliate. And so I save it up enough till I feel I owe them a big one. Really quite nasty, okay? But being with people who are short-tempered and very spiteful and, complaining, is that pleasant for us? It's not pleasant at all. So how is it for other people when we are short-tempered and spiteful and complaining? Yeah, that's the experience we give to others. So it's quite helpful, just to reflect on, how we feel when we're around people like that. And then instead of complaining about them because they complain, to use the opportunity to say, this is how I look when I'm short-tempered and complain, and when I grouse at people, this is how I look, and I don't want to look that way, I don't want to be that way, I don't want to put that energy out into the world, so I'm going to be more attentive to my behavior now, and more conscientious. Okay? So we can't complain about the complainers. It would be nice, though. Yeah? Complainers deserve to be complained about. It's only fair, don't you think? That person's so difficult to be with. They complain all the time. God, I really don't like being around them. And that one is so short-tempered, anything you say to them, they flip out and they yell and scream, and, I can't stand it when they act like that. This is what we do, isn't it? Yeah? So I guess that's why they say that things we don't like about ourselves we see in others. Okay, the next one says, don't make a short-lived attempt. Okay, So it serves no purpose if you affect some effort in meditation at the beginning and then leave it all together. Okay? Effort needs to be like a great river or a strong bowstring. Yeah? So it doesn't work to just, start out with a lot of enthusiasm and effort, and then after a little while just, flat tire. Yeah? So, we really have to get over this kind of short-lived attempt and these short bursts of energy. It says, the praise of the praiseworthy says, and this one also has a little bit translation difficulty, for you to prove your superiority, show neither flexibility nor rigidity. Oops, I'm complaining about the translator. Therefore, your supreme quality is to show no distinction of rank or partiality. So those last two lines, about not showing distinction of rank or partiality, let's stop dividing, who's superior, who's inferior in our mind, and really allow ourselves to feel close to everybody and to benefit everybody. So this one translates that line as do not be fickle. Okay? In other words, for example, making a short-lived attempt at practice, you're fickle. It's like, oh, I really love this practice. I'm going to do this one all the time. And you do it for a week and then kerplunk. You're bored. And, oh, I'm going to do this practice. This one's really a good practice. Yeah? And then you learn and study that one. Then you get bored with that. But this one is a really good practice. And I'm sure this is the one I want to do. Okay? So we have all these kind of short-lived attempts. And then because our mind is fickle, it can't stay with anything very long. Then it jumps from one thing to another. So you see this, in people in terms of worldly activities. Yeah, people who jump from one job to the next, or one hobby to the next, or one friend to the next. And you see it in the Dharma too, people jumping from one group to the next, from one teacher to the next. And I think this often has a lot to do in the West with our consumer mentality, yeah, because we have so many things to choose from that the moment something is the least bit boring, we feel like, well, it's my prerogative to drop it and go get something that's more interesting. Yeah? And so we do this with friendships, with jobs, with so many things. And constantly looking for something new and exciting, something new to get a hit from. Okay? Going for all the 31 flavors. And so we never really stay with anything long enough to really go into the depth. Yeah. So I'm not saying that you have to stay with everything that you meet, but because sometimes things just aren't suitable, they aren't appropriate. But the mind that's dissatisfied, that's always thinking better, new, and can't stick with things, then that becomes a problem for us in just our practical daily life as well as in the Dharma. Clear? Yeah. Okay. And incorporated in this one of short-lived attempts and being fickle is mood swings. Yeah. I know nobody here is moody. Yeah, but that's what happens when we're moody, isn't it? It's like, oh, I'm all excited about this, and then 20 minutes later, don't want to do it. And then I'm excited about this, and 15 minutes after that, it's like, I'm on to something else. So the the mind being very moody. Yeah. So I think it's kind of a practice for us to choose something, and then, and if the thing is pretty much a good choice, then stay with it over time, instead of letting this bored mind that wants a big hit, kind of pull on the ring in our nose and drag us elsewhere. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, first of all, I've noticed, your question is, what's the antidote to boredom? I've noticed that since I've started practicing the Dharma, boredom is very infrequent. Yeah? Because all you have to do is look at your mind when you're bored. There's our laboratory is right here, isn't it? So when we're bored, then we study that mind of boredom. Yeah? What made it arise? What does it feel like? Where does it go? What are its effects? Yeah? We start being aware of the mind of boredom. And that actually eliminates the mind of boredom. Okay. And then also what I do is, if I'm just really flat out bored, then I do the bodhicitta meditations. Because how can you remain bored meditating on bodhicitta? You can't. It's too juicy. Okay, then the next one is don't expect gratitude. After all I've done, can't I even have a thank you? I mean, I'm not asking for much. You don't need to do a whole lot, but at least say thank you. Okay, so this refers to not expecting an immediate reward for whatever little good you do. You should give up saying that there is no use being good or otherwise to such and such a person because he can't even say thank you. Yeah. So there's no use helping this person. I mean, they don't even say thank you. They're just so rude, so inconsiderate. That's how we treat people, isn't it? After all I've done for you. And sometimes before we help somebody, we kind of plan it out in our mind of how we can help them and make sure that they notice how we've helped them and what they might give us in return for the help. Maybe they'll praise us, maybe they'll introduce us to somebody who's really powerful or really famous, maybe they'll put in a good word for us, or they'll give us a present, or this, that, okay? And so always, this is business mind, isn't it? Business mind. I'll do this and such for a person because then they will feel obliged to do this and such for me. Mm-hmm. And if they don't, well, that's it. Forget it. Not going to help them anymore. They didn't deserve it anyway. All they do is grumble. Can't even say thank you. They just say, why didn't you give me more? Why didn't you give me better? Yeah. Whereas a bodhisattva would go, oh, you want more? You want better? Let me see what I can do. Yeah. But of course, a bodhisattva would also know that if giving somebody more and better was damaging to them, that they definitely wouldn't do it. Yeah. So bodhisattva, it isn't like a bodhisattva is the the perfect one that a con man should hit on. Okay. Yeah. Bodhisattvas can't actually be conned because they're really looking out for what's beneficial for somebody. Okay. The great Bodhisattva Chekawa put this into practice to good effect. With a sense of satisfaction, he said, "My manifold aspirations have given rise to humiliating criticism and suffering." Oh, somebody who understands my experience. Oh. But he says, but having received instructions for taming the misconception of self, even if I die, I have no regrets. Okay? So, it may be into external appearances, my manifold aspirations have given rise to humiliating criticism and suffering. Yeah. That's what it looks like on the outside. That's how the self-centered thought could interpret it. But Cheka was saying, having received instructions for taming the misconceptions of self, even if I die, I have no regrets. Because by eliminating the misconceptions of self, the self-grasping, that I that wants to be recognized, that wants to be noticed, that wants to be appreciated, by deconstructing that I and seeing that there's no truly existent thing there, then, even if you die, there's no regrets. Okay? So this one too, do not wish for gratitude. Don't expect praise or thanks for helping others. And don't offer to help others in order to receive something back in return. So again, this whole business mind. Okay, so this concludes the explanation of the training in the conventional awakening mind. Okay, so the conventional bodhicitta, the aspiration to become Buddha for the benefit of sentient beings, we've now completed that section. So why don't I pause here and see if you have any questions before going on. Or comments. After everything I've done for you, you don't have a question or a comment?
I do have a question about the source of dissatisfied mind.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just attachment? I mean, can we identify that as just the craving that's constantly wanting?
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
Okay, so the question is the source of dissatisfied mind. Is it traced back to craving and attachment, wanting? What do you think? Isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. It can be, there's different kinds of dissatisfaction. One kind can go more towards craving, I want. Another one can go more towards, I want, but I'm not getting. Okay, so I think one kind of dissatisfaction can be more inclined towards the craving, and another kind of dissatisfaction, there's frustrated craving, so the mind's more inclined towards anger or hostility. Okay? Because sometimes when we really want something, and we're not getting it, I want it. We're dreaming about it, we're planning, we're conniving, we're very much in the attachment mode, Other times when we want something and we're not getting it, it's like, I didn't get it, I'm so mad about it. So, I think there's different flavors of dissatisfaction. But definitely, without attachment, there wouldn't be any dissatisfaction. Yeah.
One thing that I've noticed about getting bored, I've been kind of going through this past week or so, is what's happening is that the self-centered thought, the mind is settling down, and because the display, the proliferation has actually decreased somewhat, the boredom is coming from the self-centered mind side. So if I can just get myself to just enjoy the fact that the mind isn't proliferating. It's a new experience. The adrenaline rush isn't there, the excitement that the self-centered thought gets up with the storytelling and stuff. It's just the peace. I call it boredom when in fact it's peace. It's calmness. It's settled.
Okay, so you're saying that sometimes what you experience as boredom is coming about because all the proliferating thoughts and emotions and stories and those things, you've been so effective in working with them in your mind that they're not coming up so much. But you're so used to having them there, and you're so used to, okay, this is a totally wrong story, but let's go into it anyway and analyze it and see how it's wrong. Right? Yeah? because we're very alike. And, and so, this is my story. I mean, it's painful, it's rotten, but it's still kind of interesting, And it gives me something. I got to apply the antidote to it, so I got to do something. And, and then when our practice has been effective and that thing isn't coming up so much, then we say, it's a really boring meditation session, No adrenaline rush, no emotion, no distraction. Yeah, what a boring session. But actually what you're saying is your mind's peaceful, Your mind's actually peaceful, but we're so unaccustomed to feeling peaceful that we feel it as something unsatisfactory, Give me another adrenaline rush. I want something to get ticked off at, because then I really feel alive.
I've been using it as an antidote to sleepiness. When I am caught up in my proliferating and my exciting stories, whatever's going on, it keeps me
awake. Yeah, right.
Then when I finally let it go, I've exhausted my mind so much that it drops me into these. I'm figuring out that's where the sleepiness is coming from, is the mental exhaustion coming on.
Yeah. Well, it's true, isn't it? You have this whole proliferating story, I mean, it's like a three-ring circus there. And then you exert all your energy to combat it, and then finally you combat it and your mind becomes peaceful, and then yeah, oh, too tired, I want something exciting. Somebody do something that annoys me, then I won't have this problem. Because when I'm annoyed, I don't fall asleep in meditation. Never, Do you? When you're annoyed? Oh, you never get sleepy that session. Yeah.
The bell goes off and I didn't even remember the last time.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about not expecting gratitude. We do a lot of things where we don't expect it. But then I'm thinking about, my friend was Sunday one day, was feeding the turkeys, and out of nowhere, one of the turkeys said, "Thank you." She's going to notice that turkey every time. And, as a former teacher, we know that we didn't usually get thanked by our students. But every now and then, very rarely, this little person comes up and thanks you. And so what do you do? Is sincere, do we say, "Please don't tell me that"? So I handle that so that we still get sucked into looking for it.
Okay, so your question is, your example is if Venerable Semke is out there, because she feeds the turkeys every morning. If she's out there giving them food, and one of the turkeys says, "Oh, thank you." And maybe even shows their feathers. Then Semke is going to go, "Oh, this is nice." Okay. And so then Dallas is saying, as a teacher, every once in a while somebody might say thank you to her, a child, and then the mind just instantly starts noticing that child or that turkey. Yeah. Paying more attention to them because they said thank you. And so, what do? Do you say, "Shut up, don't thank me"? That won't work, will it? No, when somebody thanks you, you say you're welcome, But the thing is not to get attached to the thank you, Not to give it more meaning and more value than it's worth. Yeah, and so not to afterwards give that person special attention and ignore the others. Yeah, but just, Actually, when somebody else says thank you, we should rejoice that they have a kind mind that has gratitude. So instead of saying, oh, they feel grateful to me, how wonderful I am, say how wonderful it is that somebody creates some good karma and has a mind that recognizes kindness and is grateful for it. Okay? And so not to take that praise or that thanks as something special, you know, that has to do with me.
There's a comment online from John from Boise asks if you think it is a good idea to use a simple method for generating a feeling of bodhicitta first thing in the morning and last thing before going to sleep.
Okay, so John is asking if I think it's good to use a simple method for generating bodhicitta first thing in the morning and last thing before going to sleep. Anybody have any complaints about doing that? John, that's a great idea. Yeah? Yeah. Well, actually, part of the refuge commitment is to take refuge first thing in the morning and last thing in the evening. They're separate. Okay. When you take the bodhisattva vow, then you should generate bodhicitta, bodhicitta 3 times a day, at least. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Okay, so Sundar is saying that being boastful, being arrogant, keeps us, not only distances us from other people, but distances us from ourselves, because we can't practice on a stable base. We're creating something quite false. Like that? Yeah? And so, and it's true, isn't it? You know, oh, look what a great practitioner I am, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah? And then how can we be honest and really see where we're at and practice in a genuine way if we're always kind of painting things? Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So if we're very full of pride, and I'm already such a great practitioner, then why should I exert myself in practice? Yeah. And so then we become very complacent. Yeah. And complacency on the spiritual path is really deadly. You know, it's very deadly when we get complacent. That's actually one of the mental factors. Sometimes they call it haughtiness, and sometimes complacency. Haughtiness and complacency in English sound like 2 different things, but if you look, they're actually quite related. Yeah, because when we're very kind of haughty, we're also at the same time complacent, aren't we? And when we're complacent, we're very haughty. Self-satisfied, yeah. Yeah. So that's very different than rejoicing at our own merit. So rejoicing at our own merit is something good, something that we should do. Being self-satisfied and complacent, on the other hand, is very different. And that's something that is like putting tar on our practice. Anything else? Okay, so we have a few minutes. So we're going into cultivating the ultimate awakening mind. Okay, so the ultimate bodhicitta. Usually when we say the word bodhicitta, we're referring to the altruistic aspiration, wanting to attain enlightenment for the benefit of others. But sometimes we talk of conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. in which case conventional bodhicitta is that aspiration for enlightenment for the benefit of others. And ultimate bodhicitta is the wisdom directly realizing emptiness. Okay? And so here, we're going into the section on ultimate bodhicitta, so it's going to be describing how to generate that wisdom that can directly realize emptiness. Mm-hmm.
Why do they call it that? Because then you have to say that the arhats have bodhicitta.
Okay, so why did they call it that? And then do you say arhats have bodhicitta? Actually, you wouldn't say somebody has ultimate bodhicitta unless they already have conventional. And you wouldn't say they have full conventional bodhicitta until they also have ultimate bodhicitta. So you might have some bodhicitta without having a realization of emptiness, but it's not really a full, complete conventional bodhicitta, I would say, unless it is conjoined with a realization of emptiness. And so similarly, somebody could have realized emptiness, and even directly, but you wouldn't call that ultimate bodhicitta if they didn't also have conventional bodhicitta that was supporting and sustaining it. Mm-hmm.
Is that why you can't lose bodhicitta at some point? Because you don't necessarily realize emptiness when you have a certain level of bodhicitta that's stable, but realizations aren't permanent.
Mm-hmm.
So why, I don't quite follow why you couldn't lose bodhicitta until you really realize something.
Okay, so your question is about losing bodhicitta. We have the 5 paths. Path of accumulation is the first path, and you enter the bodhisattva path of accumulation by generating bodhicitta. That path of accumulation has 3 phases to it, and by the time you get to the last phase, I think it's the last phase, maybe it's the middle one, then you cannot lose your conventional bodhicitta. So it's not that you have to directly realize emptiness to prevent yourself from losing your conventional bodhicitta. It's more that you have to have very firm within you in a very, very stable way, in a very familiar, habituated way, the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. What would cause it to be so stable? Without having realized emptiness? Because you've made your compassion very stable. You have some understanding of emptiness. Maybe you haven't realized it directly, but you have some understanding, by the time you're on the path of accumulation. Okay? Yeah, so that's stable. And then also you've been working on serenity. And so some people, even by the time they've entered the path of accumulation, they have attained serenity or shamatha. And so that can really help stabilize the bodhicitta as well. Okay.
So then what would be what you said was full conventional bodhicitta that we don't have to be realized emptiness directly? So what makes it full?
What makes it full? When it's complemented by the realization of emptiness. I mean, I don't know if full is the right word. It changes. Put it this way. The quality of your bodhicitta changes when it's complemented by the direct perception of emptiness. Yeah, it's different than when it isn't complemented in that way. Okay? And it kind of goes up a notch. Yeah? Okay. In training and cultivating the ultimate awakening mind, there are 3 factors: the type of person to whom the instruction should be given, the time for imparting the instruction, the teachings, and the actual instructions on cultivating the ultimate awakening mind. Okay, so those are the 3 outlines. And we're out of time. Just to repeat those again, the type of person to whom the instruction should be given. So who do you teach emptiness to? When, the time for imparting the teachings, when do you teach that person? And then what are the actual teachings that are given? Because it's very important to teach emptiness to somebody when they are prepared for it. Yeah, if somebody's not prepared for the teachings on emptiness, then it can actually be quite detrimental to them and to oneself. Yeah, so there's a certain kind of vehicle, or vessel, a vessel that you give the teachings to. Okay.